Welcome to the premiere of our 16th season and 401st episode of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 5th of May, 2021, in which an Unearthly podcast will be exploring the worst companions of each Doctor. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and I'm assuming that we're not covering Doctor Who Series 13 this season, but you never know. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Happy Cinco de Mayo!
And Mad Matt Winchell.
I get the feeling that season's not going to be a Crystal Lake. It would improve it greatly.
Thomas Fireheart may still be arriving today, but we're not entirely sure, so we are moving forward with the show.
We
right.
just shrug our shoulders and guess he's going to be late tonight.
Yep. So it's been 2 weeks. How's everybody been?
Busy.
I am now fully vaccinated. My 2-week post-injection period is up.
Mine is Monday.
Forth. I could now go forth, except I don't have a reason to go forth yet. I need to make some phone calls and make some appointments with the eye doctor and yada yada yada.
So I finished my semester, which is good. That means I still have a lot to do, but it's a lot of stress off the shoulders. And next week, after a few hours after our show, I take a bus to take a plane to go back home to go back to Connecticut and walk in my year-delayed graduation.
I took a break from a game, played Warlocked again. Warlock, not Warlocked. Came back to the game I was playing, and I'll be talking about that game now tonight. Also literally had a small indie franchise literally hop up onto my lap and say, pay attention to me this afternoon, and I'll be reviewing one of those too.
Yeah. As in they sent you a copy of something, or?
What do you mean?
When you say hop up on your lap until you pay attention to them, what do you mean?
As in, I was looking through Steam, an indie game popped up that was grabbing my attention. I looked at it, and then I looked at the company behind it and realized they're indie. Almost all the games are free, and that the first game they made is actually still not available on Steam, so I just checked out their website and downloaded it.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant maybe like someone from the studio emailed you a code to get free games or something.
Nope, I
for
just
review copies.
randomly stumbled
He's
into
not
this.
That big.
I think the closest I ever got to that was a local indie group was okay with giving me a review copy for a movie once.
I haven't had that level of fame since the mid-90s.
It's hard to get any of that fame nowadays because there's a dozen of us out there now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little bit luck. It's a little bit connections. I had the benefit of just being affiliated with a few blogs that were kind of small, but knew just the right people that I started the ball rolling of getting books and the occasional DVD sent to me. And then, of course, once the ball starts rolling, I still get emails every week asking me to review books. I'm like, I haven't reviewed books for a blog in over 5 years.
Well, I wasn't the one with the connections. My editor was back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one that would get us. It's like, hey, guess what? We're getting an advanced copy of the PlayStation. Here you go. Oh, wow. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that was then. This is now. No, the biggest thing we had, the biggest news we had in the last couple of weeks is we had the plumber over to take a look at our toilet, which has had issues forever. And they decided to replace the flush valve on it. So we've gone from having a power toilet to one of those things that barely flushes that, almost all modern toilets have. The ones I absolutely hate because they can't flush anything.
Had to sit there and run it like 3 times.
The supposedly they're water savers. Yeah. Because you have to flush them 6 times, they don't save water.
Yeah. That's a lie. You will make us waste the exact same amount we used to use.
You lie! But no, that's about the biggest thing that's happened with us the last couple of weeks, because I've just been hobbiting after my shot.
As of my last playthrough yesterday, I'm about to end my first year in Stardew Valley. I'm not ended on any particular high note at the moment yet, so I'm just waiting for the big character high note that I want to have happen first, and then I might stop actually streaming it, but that might take a couple weeks yet.
Anybody else have anything happen in the last couple of weeks? No?
I think that's about it.
Let's get into it then. On tonight's show, we've got birthdays. We've got a little bit of news. We have something to discuss in the rumor mill.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Geek Talk. And then we've got our special, in which we are going to discuss the least favorite one from our least favorite companion from each Doctor. So, starting with birthdays, we've got 2 weeks to cover. First 2 was on April 27th, and was the birthday of Jenna Coleman, who played Clara from 2013 to 2015. She turned 35. And Russell T. Davies, the showrunner from 2005 to 2009, he turned 58. Wow, I didn't know he was that old. Moving into May, the 1st of May saw the birthday of Sacha Dhawan, who played the Master currently. He turned 37. Also on the same day is the birthday of Joanna Lumley, who played the 13th Doctor in The Curse of Fatal Death in 1999. She turned 75. The second saw the birthday of Paul Darrow, who played Tecker in Time Lapse, but is better known as Avon from Blake 7. He would have been 80, but died in 2019 at the age of 78.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th saw the birthday of Richard E. Grant, who played the 10th Doctor in Curse of Fatal Death. Also played Mr. Simeon in The Snowmen. In 2012, he turned 64. And then finally, the birthday of Delia Derbyshire, the theme music arranger from 1963 to 1979. Would have been 84, but died in 2001 at 64. I don't think I need to explain who any of these people are.
Not really.
So, happy birthday, Jenna, Russell, Sacha, Joanna, Paul, Richard, and Delia.
How many names did you have to cut out to keep the list that short?
I think 1. There was a long patch of where there were nobody but bit actors. I'm like, okay.
Moving on, and just enough.
From births, we go to deaths. And AUP is set to announce the death of Frank Cox, a director from the early days of Doctor Who. Frank was born in London in 1940. He studied English at the University of Leeds, and after he graduated in 1962, he got a job as a floor assistant at BBC, and was shortly thereafter offered a training course on directing. His first directing job was The Brink of Disaster, Part 2 of The Edge of Destruction, the 3rd serial of Doctor Who. The following year, he came back to Doctor Who to direct the final 2 episodes of The Sensorites. He is on record of being the only old-school director for Doctor Who that never actually directed an entire serial. Following Doctor Who, he worked as both a director and producer for the BBC, working on such shows as The Revenue Men, Mogul Warship, Sutherland's Law, Softly Softly Task Force, EastEnders, and High Road. His final job was director for a show called Taggart for STV. Cox was married to actress Bridget Turner, who is also a Doctor Who alumni from the episode Gridlock.
Mm-hmm.
She, however, died in 2014.
I looked her up really quick. She played one of the busybodied old women that spied on people in Gridlock.
Yep.
It says something. A Doctor Who figure from the first season of the show was married to a figure from the third season of the rebooted show.
Third season, yep.
Mm-hmm. It's a small world in British acting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to that, there's not really much season 13 news. Filming is going on in Cardiff, both in the studio and on location. They're doing a historical and have been for the last couple of weeks. Other than that, we have Big Finish news. The new release out this week was the First Doctor Adventures Volume 5 with David Bradley, Claudia Grant, Jamie Glover, and Gemma Powell. There doesn't seem to be any more free releases anymore.
Mm.
And that's all the news we have. Moving on to the rumor mill.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Noel Clarke is in a bit of a hot water. The British newspaper The Guardian came out with a investigative special shortly after he received his BAFTA, in which they've claimed that 20 people have come forth claiming that Noel has basically bullied or sexually abused them. We're going to try to take this apart and find out what is fact and what is newspaper. So, from what we can glean, there are 3 or 4 names that have actually come forward with their name and made these sexual harassment claims. The Guardian says they have more, but all of them are using aliases.
And it seems when they reported it to BAFTA, they did so through intermediaries as well.
Correct.
Possibly the same with the police, but I don't think they gave a statement about that fact.
The police have one direct name. Or what? No, they've received one third-party report.
One
So they
third-party
received
report who was
no
also
direct
being
news.
hush-hush about who they were.
Hmm.
So the police aren't even currently investigating because they don't have a direct claim.
Yeah.
And somebody probably needs to be pressing charges for that sort of investigation to happen.
Correct.
Yes.
And I mean, it has to be direct. You can't press charges on behalf of someone else unless you're their legal representative, like a lawyer.
Right, or a class action.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that Britain has class actions, I don't actually
there's
know.
usually a lawyer that starts the class action.
Yeah.
Right.
But you either have to make the claim yourself or your lawyer has to. You can't come forward and say, oh, he harassed this person. That's hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of this seems to be hearsay. I'm not saying all of it is.
Mm-hmm. It seems that there is one series of events that there's enough evidence that we can concretely say what seems to have happened, and it's unclear whether the other allegations are part of that or whether they're independent.
Correct. And how many of these allegations that started up are people going, me too, after this news broke? We know the fact, another part of the fact is BAFTA has suspended Noel Clarke over the claims, but that's, again, usual in this kind of situation. The Guardian has now said 6 more people, for a total of 26, have come forward. These would be the Me Tooers.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them are former students at the London School of Dramatic Art. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. The London School of Dramatic Art basically posted on Twitter and has said the following. That in 2011, he was invited to join their board of directors. It was agreed at that time that his involvement would solely be advisory. and he would not be involved in management or teaching within the school. He was invited to speak to the students on a limited number of occasions. And, each one was supposed to be kind of a industry talk Q&A thing. However, on at least one occasion, Noel decided to turn it into a practical acting workshop. The LSDA was informed that in this unsanctioned class, he set up improvisation exercises in which the students were told they had to get undressed and get ready for bed. After that, the LSDA no longer scheduled Noel to take unsupervised sessions immediately afterwards. So they have only heard what happened at these sessions recently. And they have said, had they known of the details at the time, they would have basically cut all ties with Noel at that point. They did cut ties with Noel in 2015.
But they knew enough to start supervising him at a certain point. Which is why I've seen a few people in the film business wondering why they didn't cut all ties with him instead of starting to supervise him.
Well, again, mostly it seems like their response to that was the fact that he did these unsanctioned classes, not really the details behind it until later.
Yeah, the details of what happened apparently only came out recently, whereas the fact that it was unsanctioned classes is what got their attention. They went, nope, stop that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's unclear how many people were in these classes. It would not be difficult for me to believe that 12 or 20 people were all reporting the same incident. But it's also possible that if this is something he feels comfortable with, that he's taken other actions that people have felt uncomfortable with.
Yes.
And he gives the same sort of half apology where first he says he did nothing wrong, and then he apologizes for doing wrong that you usually see in these cases, which doesn't exactly give me any confidence that it's not just what his lawyer said to say.
Yeah, it is.
That's my kind of feeling about it too, is that it's very similar. I'm going to go seek help, but I totally did nothing wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's verbatim what Weinstein said.
His statement says, I didn't realize my actions could have affected people in those ways, which sounds like total bullshit. Because he then proceeds to go on and says, I'm sorry, I'll be seeking professional help, but then still proceeds to claim that he has not done anything wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So that alone indicates that there's more to the story that we haven't heard yet.
Mm-hmm.
Quite possibly. That are
ITV
really bad trying to clean up the trail.
And Sky TV have both halted Clark's current series.
Ooh.
The police drama Viewpoint was supposed to be airing as of this week. On Friday, that episode did not air. And production was underway for the fourth series of his crime drama Bulletproof, and that production has been halted. BAFTA has suspended him, meaning he's actually no longer allowed to act.
Or I assume to be in a producing or etc. role, because it seems
Correct.
that that's also what he's done a lot of.
Yeah, well, BAFTA's like SAG here in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
It's
not
just
approved
awards,
by
it is
BAFTA,
like the backbone of things.
You're not allowed to work in the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few roles that you can take that are
right
non-BAFTA.
I'm guessing from its. I'm guessing from the way from its name that it's a combination of, say, SAG and the WGA or DGA. I mean, and possibly other related.
Oh, it's
organization.
SAGS, DGA, and the
Mhm.
Academy.
Right.
Mm.
All of these rolled into one is kind of how BAFTA functions.
Mhm.
But there is a way of doing non-BAFTA work as a way of earning credit to get your BAFTA license. But I don't think that works if you're blacklisted. And if this is
Yeah.
what's going on, he's on the blacklist right now.
I mean, if he were American, I would say he could get a job working for Ben Shapiro.
Although
he could
if these accusations turn out real, even Ben Shapiro wouldn't want him.
I think I don't know if there is somebody that equivalent there that's that underhanded, but Piers Morgan rings a bell, but I honestly don't know if he's that influential or that if Noel Clark would consider working with him. But either way, it's very unlikely. Regardless, that's kind of going way off on a mental tangent.
That is way tangenty. Yes. The fact is that
It's
right
the way
now
my brain works.
he is currently not employed in the film industry until this gets sorted out, and then possibly not thereafter if it doesn't get sorted out in his favor. And like I said, at the moment, all we can really say is that a handful of people have come forward. Anything else may be the case, or it may be once again the newspaper inflating its numbers to make a story.
Yeah.
One or the other. I will say this. As far as British tabloids go, The Guardian is probably the most reliable of them. It has a 84% truthful rating.
That being said, it is still a tabloid. So
Well, it only started being a tabloid recently. Before this, it used to be called the Manchester Guardian and was the Manchester City newspaper. It is only as of 2018 that they changed their format into a more tabloid style newspaper. So it's still, like I said, 84% is actually pretty truthful, but
there's margin of error.
There's still the possibility of a Rita Skeeter type that wants to basically take,
Is
what's
the
a
Guardian
large hill and turn it into a mountain.
is the Guardian known for leaning in a certain political direction?
It is known for left leaning.
Part of the reason I ask is that as a black man who's accused people in the industry of racism, I would immediately believe this a little bit less if something very right wing like the Mail or the Mirror were reporting it, because you'd know they'd be trying to stir up shit.
Yeah, no, the Guardian is known for its liberal viewpoint.
Yeah, I was trying to think what the other side of the Guardian would be. Yeah, it would be the Mail.
Yeah. And the Mail is gone highly tabloid.
The Sun.
Well, that too.
I know more about British tabloids from this podcast than I ever thought I would know in my life.
I know. Just from this rumor mill segment, I've learned more about the British tabloids than I ever have. Really? The Guardian is considered one of the UK's quality news brands, along with the Times, the Daily Telegraph, and the Independent. So it is probably one of the more reliable newspapers in the UK. And like I said, it does tend to be more left-leaning, so I don't think it would be starting shit.
At least we certainly would hope so. So that's it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, We don't really have anything more to say. It's a reliable, so there's probably something here.
Right.
Um,
We're not going to be reporting on every tweet and every
Yeah.
little bit that comes out, but anything major we're definitely going to cover.
Yep.
Yeah,
As this will,
if
as
there's
this,
something that actually does start to happen, we'll let y'all
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
There's definitely something there, but the extent of it is at this point a big we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's looking bad.
Looking bad, but nothing for sure yet.
All right. I was kind of hoping Thomas would be here by now.
Right.
Yeah, not sure what's up with him. Hopefully nothing
'Cause
wrong.
Yeah, maybe his internet went down or something.
He has
Oh,
been having internet issues.
He is showing up as actually online in Do Not Disturb mode, but I was already going to ask if we could start with video games because I think I drank too much water before the podcast. So if we're lucky, he'll log on
Maybe.
during that.
Okay, because of that, we'll reverse the normal order and start with video games, Matt.
All right.
Mind you, I am going to stopwatch this, so
Alrighty. Fair enough. So we're going to skip ahead to video games, which means I have to tab over to here, and we're going to start with Valheim. So I have decided I'm done trying to play Valheim, at least for right now. Long story short, I see that there's potential in this game. I really do. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I have seen people who have reached endgame. My number one thing with Valheim right now, though, is that if I'm going to get any further in the game, I require people to help me. The critters I'm facing up against are way too damn big with way too many hit points, and I need to actually get the appropriate minerals I need in order to upgrade my gear in the game in order to be able to handle them better. And that's just not happening. And matter of fact, I got killed trying to get back to my boat to try and get my body back, and then I proceeded to die 3 more times, and that's where I finally went, I'm done. This has happened before, and it's happening again. I am not interested in continuing this cycle for a half hour of me constantly dying, having to respawn and come back and repeat again and again and again until maybe it goes my way once. So, yeah, for now, as far as I'm concerned, Valheim is done for me. I'll come back to it maybe if I hear that there's been some major upgrades, maybe if there's been some tweaks to make combat a little less of a nuisance. Also, especially if there's some tweaks to make the building of structures a lot easier to grasp and a lot less tweaky. It has an issue trying to sit still and get into proper positions sometimes. Also, if the stuff with the benches gets a little more properly fitted out too, because yikes.
yeah. I mean, I played it for about an hour,
Um,
and it hit me as basically being clunky Conan Exiles. And I mean by that is it's basically serving the same kind of function game as Conan, but the controls are clunkier, the building is clunkier, everything seems to be a lot, well, like I said, clunkier, coarser, harder to control.
It doesn't really help this game that it's very much an indie game. Whereas Conan Exiles, you've got the entirety of Funcom behind that, more or less, and you have a devoted group that's still working on it. Valheim is really being created by 2 guys.
I know, but
Um,
that doesn't stop me from saying, why would I want to play an hour with this versus an hour on Conan Exiles?
Honestly, the reason I
Where,
kept going is because I just liked the interesting look of it. It's got a very interesting indie look to it, and also there's a lot of critters in it that you don't see in any other games.
yeah, I did not like the look of it. My character, I didn't like how my character looked. I didn't like how my character moved. And the few monsters I did see where I was just like, But like I said, I only played it for an hour.
Yeah, I have 122 hours. But yeah,
Anything?
That's my final thoughts on it, is that there's definitely some possibility with this game, but it needs a lot more polish. And I believe it's still technically in early access. Or was it
Yeah,
officially released? Start
not as
page.
far as I'm aware.
Oh, sorry. Pause that. Yeah, it's still in early access.
Yeah.
So yeah, it needs some more doing. Hopefully, it doesn't change radically, completely from what it is, like Rust did. Otherwise, I'm never
Yeah.
buying another survival game in early access again.
Now,
Twice
you
bitten, three
know,
times shy.
I have no problem with early access games. I mean, I play Phasmophobia. It's just I did not like the feel of this, and it might be again because I'm a controller player, and the while it did have controller support, it was pretty terabad on it. So
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually released for anything but PC, to be fair.
that does not necessarily mean, oh, it's only a PC release, don't give it controller support, but
I'm
it
not saying
does.
that either, but I'm just saying that they might not be their focus because it's not on consoles. Oh, I could have sworn Phasmophobia was technically already released. I guess it is early
Nope.
access as well.
No, it just doesn't feel. It doesn't feel like it was ready to be an early access game. It felt like it's more of an alpha.
More of a maybe an early beta, but yeah.
Anyway, you had another one?
Anyway, yeah. So my more interesting one. So Valheim being done for now. I was scoping out stuff on Steam, and I don't know why, but for some reason this little indie game popped up. It looked interesting, and it was a retro look to it, and it was a first-person shooter. So I'm like, okay, so this is a second one in the series. Let's check out the company behind it and see what else they have here. Company the name, the nickname the person making these apparently goes by is Scumhead, and that's the name for their business they went with. And so I went to look through their list, and there's at least currently 3 finished games, a 4th one being on the way, and one of the finished games was a number 2 with no number 1. So I decided to look up the name of the game, which was Lycanthorn. And come to find out, they have a website, and the first one is free to download on their website, and all these other games they've been making are also free to get on Steam if you want to. From what I can understand, is that this person has decided that they wanted to make essentially their own like horror action adventure games, basically using the Doom engine, which you can do for free because there's multiple mods out there that basically run a Doom engine without the Doom engine itself from like Doom 1 and 2. And so they decided to take a bit of the Doom like first person shooter engine, combine some ideas from Castlevania, and made Lycanthorn. Essentially, it's a game that lasts me about an hour this afternoon to play. Took little to no time to set up. Just double clicked on an icon and went in. It was interesting. I was fine with it. There's maybe a few spots here or there that I would suggest that maybe they do some level touch-ups because some of the what do I say, platforming is questionable at times. But then again, Doom has always kind of had a issue with the Doom engine being able to platform, do jumps and stuff onto ledges. That being said, the majority of my time with it was pretty fun, and I, like I said, defeated it in little more than an hour, like an hour and 10 minutes or so. Definitely very 8-bit retro styled art, but again, you can tell it's the Doom engine, so it's a bit more advanced than that. And I'm kind of thinking that I might at some point download the rest of the games they have and maybe just do a 4-hour stream of those games and see how far I get through them. And I'm not gonna lie, like I said, there's some touch and go things here with Lycanthorn at first, and I'll pull up a couple of the images here, scroll down and see some more stuff here, and actually get a closer look at this one. But most of the art seems to be original. Like, I think there's maybe one or two sprites that might not have been original in this one, which is maybe why it's not on Steam. So maybe they've fixed that issue with the other ones they made. And
Possibly.
but otherwise, for a very short game, it was not exactly a bad time, and I suffered a few deaths. Well, then I learned to save more often, and got, like I said, got through it in a relatively short period of time. And I'm interested in streaming it and some of this guy's follow-ups if they continue to be of decent quality. So I'll give them a shot at some point. I'm probably done with my current list of games I've been voted for through my Patreon. See when that happens. But yeah, it was a little indie title that just literally came out of nowhere for me today, and I played it in about an hour. I enjoyed myself, so figured I'd give it at least a little call out.
All right. And Thomas, I see you're here.
Yep.
Thomas exists.
We were getting a little worried and eventually had to start without you.
Ah.
We are currently at Geek Talk, by the way.
Ah.
We just did video games, which we did out of order, so television is actually next.
Ah, okay. So yeah, I did get a chance to finally, properly anyway, watch the Tartakovsky Clone Wars. Which for some reason, I think like partly how they uploaded it to Disney Plus threw me off, but I used to think it was only 2 seasons, but it was 3. It's just the first 2 seasons were 3 to 5 minute episodes. So yeah, like the first 2 seasons are incredibly short in that you can, going by how Disney Plus uploaded them, you can watch them in an hour. And a bit. But yeah, it's like of the little stuff I've seen of the 3D Clone Wars, it's kind of funny comparing the two. Just because like of what I've seen of that and this, I prefer this.
Really?
Because it is like it gets the point across way quicker, and there are just some moments in it. Like there are probably moments in it that I am pissed that the 3D Clone Wars likely would never have bothered with. But there are also things that I'm like, okay, they kind of skipped over some other stuff as well. That would have been nice to see, but oh well. They had a limited amount of time they could do anything, so and also this is I get why people were pissed about General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith now, because Jesus Christ, he's a he is insane in the 2D Clone Wars. It is.
I've
Like,
always been more
holy
interested
fuck.
in watching the 2D Clone Wars than I was the 3D one for whatever reason. I think it's just like the little aside things I've seen from the 2D one that's made me more interested.
And I guess the main differences as well are that Tartakovsky had basically full control over his version, whereas Lucas was at least to start with, Lucas was a lot more heavily involved with the 3D cartoon. So there might be bits where it's just Lucas being Lucas in that one.
Definitely.
Here and there, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Lucas was busy actually making Revenge of the Sith when this one was coming out, so they shared note cards, but that was probably about it.
Yeah, which is why you go from I mean, like, it's funny because, like, for one thing, Grievous just has an insanely different voice. Because I mean, like, there was going to be a different sounding voice anyway, because it likely was going to be a different actor. But it's still funny to me how different the voices are.
And if they were made pretty
Um,
close to the same time, they probably could have just gotten the same actor.
well, yeah, that's what's funny. It probably would have been cheaper. Well, then again, I think the actor they got wasn't necessarily an I could be wrong. I feel like it was someone in production that actually auditioned and got it. um, and
Well,
like I know all the coughing stuff was Lucas himself.
I know back when these came out, Tartakovsky was the name in cartoons at that point.
Mm.
He was big because, you know, Dexter's Lab, and he helped with Powerpuff Girls, and you know, all that kind of thing. And it was just like, so we heard Tartakovsky was doing, oh, and of course Samurai Jack.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I didn't know until recently that he had done those classic Cartoon Network shows. I knew what I knew at the time was that the maker of Samurai Jack was making it.
Oh yeah, we knew about all of those. I mean, he only helped with Powerpuff Girls. That was somebody that worked with him on Dexter's Lab that went off to make that, but he helped a little. And he definitely was behind Samurai Jack and was behind Dexter's Lab. And then we heard he was going onward to make this Clone Wars stuff. We're just like, kick ass. And so we get to that, and then suddenly it stops, and this new show comes out called The Clone Wars with 3D animation. We're just like, what the fuck?
And it's weird because they try to, despite the fact that the show is supposed to be completely separate from the Tartakovsky show, they try to emulate the design choices from the 2D show to a point, and it's like some of these don't work in 3D animation at all. Or at least nowhere
Can you think of
near
an
as well.
example? Or
I'd say Palpatine, if nothing else. Like just something about his design trying to mimic the Tartakovsky design, like at least to me anyway, that doesn't really work
gotcha.
in 3D animation as well. Whereas it's fine in 2D.
Okay, googling it and seeing them side by side, I can see what you're saying. I had always I kind of watched the 2D one just kind of like as part of a compilation while at a friend's house, and I didn't pay it as much attention because I was a lot less interested in a less character driven, because it seemed to be very action driven, so I didn't pay it a lot of attention. And I had always just assumed that they had based it off of his Revenge of the Sith design. I can see after Googling Palpatine Clone Wars and looking at them side by side where they drew inspiration from the original show as well.
I mean, I think there might have been some actor crossover in both, because they might have just gone, "Oh, well, you did a good enough job in that, so we'll get you back for this." But yeah, like, of course, it's so funny because like the further in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars gets, the more I'm like, wow, he still hasn't gotten his new hand yet, because he has that more skeletal hand for pretty much up until the end of it, and I'm like, wow, really? I thought he'd have lost it well before then, but
Which
yeah,
the
okay.
funny thing is, after they retconned it, that works, because after the new show started, they basically had to re-explain it and say the Tartakovsky show mostly just covered the first 6 months of the war.
That's hilarious.
All the
because
official timelines that included both said that, except for like the last 2 episodes that lead into the movie.
Well, right. That's the funny thing is like the two, like yeah, like the final stuff is directly into, and it even explains the coughing because, and this is a thing I don't remember watching at the time, but I'm pretty sure I remember hearing about it, is that the reason that Grievous is coughing so much is because Windu, like, sort of uses the Force on his, like, the equivalent of his rib cage or something, and just sort of crushes it inwards, and that just, like, fucks him up. So it's why he's supposed to be constantly coughing in that. In Revenge of the Sith. So it's like, oh, that's nice. But yeah, that's like, it's funny because there are moments that, like, there is only so much they could do at the time, so there not being as much story driven stuff I'm fine with. But yeah, like, one moment that I know the 3D show couldn't do because they skipped it, at least as far as I can tell, that the 2D one did that was great for me, was we actually see Anakin being knighted, and then, like, when they cut off his little rat tail thing, he sends it off to Padme, who puts it in a little box with the necklace that he made her when he was still a kid. And it's like, oh wow, that's actually a really great touch. But it's not canon anymore, so that fucking sucks.
Vaguely canon.
Because, like,
Anyway, we're starting to.
yeah. But generally, I would say it's worth giving a shot. Absolutely. I mean, again, the whole thing will take you like 2 hours on the way they've put it together on Disney Plus, because it's essentially, there's credits at the start, there's credits at the absolute end of the compilation, but no credits throughout. So you are really just watching it the whole way through. And yeah, it is definitely worth checking out. I'm just glad there's a fucking legal way to watch it now.
Finally. Yeah, that's my number one reason I haven't seen it yet. It's been in the void for so long. And anyway, so that's Clone Wars, Falcon and Winter
Yes.
Soldier.
Yes, the big buzz when we had our last episode was Falcon and Winter Soldier, which of course ended a few days after our previous podcast. And the story basically covers the arc. The main arc of the story is, given the experience of Black men in America, how is it that Sam can go from, being the Falcon, being a Black man, living with all of those experiences, to be willing to do what Steve Rogers asked him to do in Endgame and take the shield and become Captain America. And I would say even at the beginning of the show, I had the feeling that if you really don't want to watch this and you want to just watch Captain America 4, it could probably be skipped without like feeling lost. But it's definitely there for people who are asking those questions and for people who want to understand the character motivation, or even people who just want to see Sam and Bucky be less of sidekicks and more of main characters. That this is the show to do that. I think in some ways it's a little simplistic in that it's very much it's marketed toward a very general audience. It's not quite so much Black Panther, which they knew was going to have a mostly Black audience. The Captain America movies probably have a mostly white audience. So there were a few very obvious scenes like, oh, this is what it's like to be a Black man going into a bank. This is what it's like to be a Black man walking on the sidewalk. Very early on in the show. But they mostly move past that into deeper issues that I think lead to some very powerful character scenes, which I think is the biggest strength of Falcon and Winter Soldier, is the character moments. The political aspects and the social aspects there's a lot of hit or miss. It does not escape me that a very white appearing person who is the lightest skinned member of her gang, not gang, but of her group of the Flag Smashers, is the one chosen to be the main character, the representative, who is sort of a rival to Sam and Bucky and US Agent throughout the show. Because, both that would probably make the position more palatable to US audiences, as well as making her seem less threatening psychologically to a lot of people. And of course, they had to go the route. Well, I don't want to. I just realized what I was about to say is potentially a spoiler, but it's gotten some of the same criticisms that Black Panther has. I'll leave it at that. But overall, I'll say that the character moments, Sam Wilson, Bucky Barnes, and John Walker are the strongest moments of the show. And I know that the showrunner is going to be part of the team writing Captain America 4, so I hope they follow through on that and do so successfully. Thomas, feel free to add anything or say the exact opposite if you feel that way.
I guess for me, I can definitely see where people are coming from, that some bits are a bit tone deaf, especially one bit that I won't go into because of spoilers, but I know I've talked about it with Bill, where there was something that came out after the show ended where they were saying, oh, you were actually supposed to really like this guy by the end. And I'm like,
I
what?
think that was the director of the finale.
Yeah.
So hopefully when they're writing Cap 4, they actually know how, know the flaws in that argument.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise I feel like, at least for me, the emotional stuff was so great that it outweighed the negatives for me for the most part. I didn't necessarily give the negatives a pass, but it was like, this show is one of the few Marvel things to bring me to tears, so I will give it some leeway in certain aspects.
So if I were to compare it to Doctor Who, my first thought is Rosa, but done a lot better. What do you think of that comparison, or do you think there's a better one?
I mean, I guess that's the most direct. I don't really know what I'd compare. I mean, funnily enough, like the longer it went on, the more I'm like, oh, okay, so this is basically like Sam's equivalent of the Black Panther movie, because there are some similarities in plot.
There's definitely similarities.
But yeah. Generally, I just really like this one. It's one of those ones where, like, I don't know how well it'll age necessarily. Like, if the negatives will just get more glaring the more I like go back and rewatch it. Because again, this is all like I've only seen all of the episodes once, so I'm really only going by initial thoughts. Whereas if I go back and watch it again, there might be things that I was clued into by watching reviews and that might actually like, oh, okay, now I see what they were saying.
Same here. I'll probably rewatch it when Cap 4 comes out.
Yeah, generally I think it's at least worth giving a shot if people are interested. Like, I mainly was like, I want to see more of Sam because he has so little to actually do in the movies so far, so it was nice to see him actually be fleshed out as a character.
All right, that's it.
All right.
Think so.
Okay.
Oh, Thomas, I don't know if you saw my tag where you had discussed to me that you might want to have a soapbox today. Is that still something you wanted to talk about, or do you want to skip it?
I'll just leave it at fuck FedEx and just leave it at that.
Oh, yeah.
uh,
There are just days where you just are fed up of adding to the package delivery service.
Fuck FedEx. Fuck UPS.
UPS in
Fuck
particular.
the U.S. Postal Service. Fuck anybody that's late with delivering my goddamn package.
All right, with
It's
that,
just which one depends on which time you're getting it shipped.
and which one's being the slowest today? So yeah, so to the main topic at hand then for tonight?
Yes. The Worst Companions by Doctor. We've got 13 doctors. We've got a bunch of companions, and we are going to decide which ones suck hardcore. And we are going to do this very similar to the way we did last time. You know, I think this is the first time we've actually done 2 specials back to back.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I am going to give you, for each doctor, a list of names. These are a list of the valid companions. If you want to argue this list with me, do so before we start discussing that. Because of the way this works, we can choose the same name.
Yeah.
Unlike where we were trying to do favorite episodes per. Sometimes,
There's only that one companion.
yeah, there's only going to be 3 or 4 companions.
And most of them are going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's trying to just
Sometimes
choose
it's
the
trying to
roughest
pick
diamond.
your least favorite child at their graduation sometimes.
Yes. Okay, so the first one we're going is the First Doctor. The list of valid companions are as follows: Ian, Barbara, Susan, Vicky, Stephen, Katerina, Dodo, Polly, Ben. That is the list of valid First Doctor companions. Anybody have issues with that?
no.
Sarah Kingdom is not included because she came and left in the same serial.
Yep. That's one of our limitations.
Yep. All right. So, once again, I have randomized names. And once again, Bill is first.
Oh. So I think I'm going to say Ben. Ben and Polly were really only in 2 First Doctor stories, and even though I liked The Smugglers better the second time I watched it, I still Ben is a character that seems to work pretty well on paper opposed to Polly, but I usually cannot stand him when he's on screen, and the fact that he's only in 2 stories really doesn't help his case. So yeah, I'm going to go with Ben.
Okay. Thomas, you're next.
God. I can only really go by what I've seen, so my options are slightly lower. But oddly enough, I think with what I've seen,
You're
I'm
the
probably
only
going
one here who hasn't reviewed every Black and White or every First Doctor episode.
to. Yeah.
I can't say every Black and White because there's one that I still haven't reviewed that I should probably watch this summer.
Shame.
Funnily enough, I think I'm actually going to go with Barbara, but I think it's more so a lot of how she's handled specifically that bugs me, more so than the character herself. Yeah.
Okay. Matt?
Actually, my particular beef is with Vicky, mostly due to the fact that she just feels like a lesser filler version of Susan.
Yeah, she's low budget Susan.
Mm-hmm.
So you think she wasn't different enough from Susan?
Yeah, she was not
basically.
different enough from Susan. She's just a replacement granddaughter with less actual attachments to the Doctor herself.
Yep. And I, of course, am going to go with Katarina because I'm surprised none of the rest of you took her.
Katarina is a close follow-up for me.
Because she's literally was so useless that the writers are just like, yeah, no, she needs to go.
We don't even know what to do with her. Let's just eat her out of the airlock.
2 obvious choices based on fandom opinions, and I'm one of them nobody picked. So I was a little surprised at that.
No one picked Dodo.
Right.
Dodo's like my number 3. I've actually liked her a little bit more over the stuff we've listened to, but she's not perfect either.
No.
Hmm.
I do like Dodo. The arc is one of my favorite episodes. So
I do think part of the reason Dodo is so hated is that most of her episodes are telesnaps.
That does not help either.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So those are our picks. And I will say that Vicky was my number 2 because of the fact that I agree with Matt that she is basically
just such a Susan knockoff, yeah. I mean, she's not even as good as Susan remotely. It's just so samey with less stuff.
Yeah. Her big thing is she helps the Doctor evolve a little bit by not being his flesh and blood.
Just slightly, yeah.
But
that's
otherwise,
about it.
Otherwise, she's the same character without the psychic powers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so from the first Doctor, we go to the second Doctor. Valid companions are Ben, Polly, Jamie, Victoria, Zoe. So 5 choices.
So I have different reasoning this time, but it brings me to the same place. And that is, I love Jamie, I love Zoe, I love Victoria. So by default, I have to choose Ben or Polly. And Ben is always going to be the short end of the stick when it comes to that.
Okay. Thomas?
I guess just by process of elimination, I'm probably actually going to go with Victoria, but that's only really because of what I've seen of her. She doesn't really do much. So only maybe it would change if I'd seen all of the stuff that's surviving that she's involved in. But of what I've seen, she just comes off as very damsel companion by comparison to. I mean, Polly could be that way when she was poorly written, but she was not intended to be that. And Zoe was basically supposed to be the Doctor's intellectual equal at that point, so it's like just by process of elimination for me it's Victoria.
All right. Matt?
I have to kind of agree that I feel like Victoria is probably the weakest one. I don't particularly hate her character. It's just like she doesn't seem to have much to do other than occasionally have decent bits of dialogue with either Jamie or the Doctor for different varying reasons. With the Doctor, it actually helps flesh out his character, and with Jamie, you kind of get an almost romantic interest until she leaves. And then it just very deep-breakingly, abruptly leaves and is left behind. It's like, oh, okay.
She really varied story to story, in which she started off as just a damsel, and then she kind of developed a character and her relationship with the other characters, and then they were like, okay, time to get rid of her.
Yeah. Just bye-bye now. Our people need us. Bye-bye, Victoria. Yoop.
Yeah, I have to agree with Victoria because basically Victoria's special talent is she can scream. Her entire last episode, she's able to stop the monsters by the power of her scream.
And so basically, she is the companion that they hired Bonnie Langford to recreate.
Yes.
So while the first Doctor had a four-way split, four-way split, the second Doctor pretty much definitively comes down on Victoria.
Yep.
And it's not like it's not that we hate her. It's just that there's some particular qualities about her that's just make the character kind of eh. And to be to be honest, is better than being absolutely dreadful.
Oh, and we made it this far without me mentioning. Recently realized that the entire black and white era of Doctor Who, Polly's actress was married to the Celestial Toymakers actor.
Yeah.
So that was a little surprising to realize.
Okay, so we move on to Color and the Third Doctor. Now, Bill and I discussed this prior to the stream, and we are invoking special circumstances for the first 2 seasons of the Third Doctor. Because the TARDIS is grounded on Earth, the ability to travel is usually one of our requirements for a companion. We are waiving that for these 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, therefore, the list of companions are the Brigadier, Liz Shaw, Joe Grant, Sergeant Benton, Mike Yates, Sarah Jane Smith.
I get the feeling I might know who was already going to be ground target number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But go ahead, Bill.
I don't think there's any competition. There's a lot of well-loved characters from among this time period, and Mike Yates is not one of them. A lot of that is circumstances that happened to him during the show, but even still.
Is that your thoughts?
So that is your choice, Bill?
Yep.
Thomas?
Yeah, like of those choices as you kept listing them off, I'm like, yeah, no, Mike Yates. And it's not even that I necessarily don't like the character. He can be good in some bits, but it's also like, to a point, did we really need a third unit guy?
Apparently
to
they
a
did.
point. Yeah, I mean, like, he does get written off at one point and then shows up like briefly again once and then is never seen again, whereas Benton is brought back, God, I think several times. Maybe not much, but
Well, Benton was also there for like at least the second time we met Lethbridge Stewart, so.
Yep.
All right, Matt, your choice?
So you can't get rid of Benton. Yeah, Mike Yates. Yeah, I feel a lot of it is that he just keeps getting sucker punched so easily by all the bad adversaries, like at least a couple of them every season. He just suddenly gets entangled with these a-holes, and it's just like, Mike, can we ever learn not to do this? But he never learns.
Yeah, I have to agree with the group. It's Mike Yates. Because I love every other character on that list.
So it's unanimous.
I think if I had to go
and there's
for a second,
there's
it'd be
some
Liz
generally
Shaw,
good moments with Mike too, and there's a couple of decent jokes with Mike Yates, but God, he gets so easily entangled with really stupid villains.
All right, so that's the Third Doctor. We now move on to the Fourth Doctor. The list of companions are as follows: Sarah Jane Smith, Harry Sullivan, Leela, K9, and I'm going to include K9 as being all marks.
Yep.
Romana 1, Romana 2, Adric. While technically, Nyssa and Tegan show up, they really are only there for the Legopolis episodes as crew, but then they will be included with the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah, Nyssa wasn't even traveling in the TARDIS her first episode. They kind of brought her back because they're like, hey, we want this character to come back.
Yep.
We just hand wave an excuse and she's here now.
So that's our list.
So for this, I almost want to rewatch a few episodes from the first season and a few episodes from the last season of this Doctor just to really settle on my opinion. But going off of my memory of their episodes, I think I'm going to say Adric.
All right. I can see that. I don't agree with it, but I can see it. Thomas.
I guess just by virtue of the fact that I hear so little people talk about him, and I haven't really seen much of him, but he must be a very unremarkable character, I guess. So I'm just gonna go with Harry Sullivan. Because, like, of all the Fourth Doctor companions that you hear about, I don't hear anyone talk about Harry Sullivan. So it's like, wow, he really didn't make much of an impression. I mean, it didn't help, to be fair, that they were intending to get an older actor for the Doctor, and then they got
Mhm.
Tom Baker. So
Mhm.
the role he was meant to serve
He was meant
basically
to be
negated.
Ian, and he ended up being Mickey.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Matt?
But yeah, he made more of an impact on the series as a novelization writer than anything else.
All right, Matt.
I was initially thinking I might go with Adric because as much as he gets better later on, especially with the Fifth Doctor, he does start off as a really annoying kid with the Fourth Doctor. But I have to also agree that Harry Sullivan in particular is, I don't know, yeah, I think it's the fact that they suddenly realized they had to completely change what his character was about because suddenly they didn't need to have him be the replacement for Jamie, and
They didn't.
it kind of nipped them in the bud with that character.
And as for me, Harry Sullivan is an imbecile. Yeah, Harry Sullivan was basically a redundant character that
Mhm.
they had already hired and didn't need and didn't continue after the first season. So
I didn't pick him because I think he contributed to more funny moments than Adric did, but it's not highly contested either way.
Yeah,
So we have 3 votes for Harry, 1 vote for Adric.
yep.
and like I said, Adric was kind of close to my second because he improved later on, but man, his first couple episodes were kind of rough.
Actually, my second vote was for Romana 1.
Romana 1 is like my third there, I think. She can be a real stick in the mud some days.
Okay, so from the fourth we go to the fifth. The fifth we have Adric, Nissa, Tegan, Turlo, Chameleon, and Perry.
Chameleon, you are the weakest link.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, is any of us not going to say Chameleon?
I would be very shocked.
Okay, so other than Chameleon, Bill,
Other than Chameleon. For the Fifth Doctor run, I would say Perry. She is a better character later, but in these 2 stories, I don't think there's really anything to recommend her.
I certainly don't agree with you that because that includes Caves of Androzani, and she was great in that. So, Thomas, other than Chameleon, because we've all agreed Chameleon is the worst.
He's not even there half the time, at least as far as we're aware.
He's like seagulls, the worst.
Ooh. This is another one where it's like the gaps in it make it interesting of who I would pick. But I think because I'm not necessarily as harsh on Adric as most people, I'm probably going to go with Turlo.
Okay.
Just because I don't know, like it seems weird to me. Like I haven't seen like the main stuff that he was brought on for, but the fact that he lingers on after that for a while is kind of like he kind of served his purpose. Why is he still around?
Because he doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, he doesn't have anywhere else to go. He's kind of hanging around because he enjoys being with them. He'd rather be there than back on Earth. And Earth was not exactly his first choice.
Hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I was thinking of Fifth Doctor companions, even after you said the list, I forgot Turlo existed. I think even when we've
talked about hate again.
Even when we've talked about Fifth Doctor companions off screen, I think I keep forgetting Turlo exists.
Okay. So Matt, how about you?
Oh. See, I don't want to hate on Turlo too much because I really do kind of like his character after he gets past his first story arc because he becomes a much better companion. Because the start of his companionship, which Thomas was just questioning, well, how did he even get started? He was basically handpicked by the Black Guardian to be a
Traitor.
traitor,
Yeah.
basically. To try and get at the Doctor, so honestly, I don't blame him for all of his bad doings in that first season or so that he's on the show, and he does get a lot better afterwards. But I have to say, between his first season and I think some of the issues poor Tegan went through during the last bits of her run, just like those two combined is just like, oh gosh. I can't really say there's one companion I really hate more than the other on that one. It's just a lot of really bad circumstances for both characters. And it makes it a little hard at times to watch sometimes because it's not even like the characters are. It's not that it's the character's fault, it's that they're kind of forced into this. And Tegan in particular just has the worst run of luck.
Right.
Which
So,
eventually leads her to finally leaving.
are you done rambling and actually going to give a name?
I can't decide between the two of them, like I said. It's kind of a time between the two of them for me still. Maybe Tegan a little more so, but just by a pinch.
So you're saying Tegan.
Yeah, I guess.
Because it's not really who has the worst time, it's who is the worst companion.
Yeah, and it was really tough to be around her sometimes.
I would say the first season of Tegan is not often not very fondly remembered.
That too. She does.
And then she mellows.
Mm-hmm.
Then she mellows, and then she has another worse time of it, which just makes it kind of contentious to be around her character again, and then she finally leaves.
But I have to choose Turlo. Other than Chameleon, Turlo
You have
is
a tiebreaker.
because he goes from being a traitor to whiny bitch.
Yes.
And that he doesn't seem to ever get past whiny bitch.
If you were to ask me his one personality trait, it's complaining about things. Yes. I honestly cannot remember anything else about his character.
See, I remember that mostly from his first season. I don't remember it so much later on. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
His first season, he's not complaining. He's smarmy. He's kissing the Doctor's ass so he doesn't realize that he's a freaking traitor. And whining at the Black Guardian when he's like, kill the Doctor. I can't.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the extreme whining with the Black Guardian that turns me off of his first season. It's like, for crying out loud.
And then it's, once he's there, he just bitches about shit. But why? It's yeah, it's just fuck off, Turlo.
We already have one alien on the TARDIS who complains about humans all the time. We don't need two.
Okay. And so now we're getting into the Doctors that is the reasons we were allowed to pick multiples. The Sixth Doctor, where you have your choices of Perry and Mel.
Well, given that there's only two choices, it'll have to be Mel.
Yeah, can you think of anybody else that'd be valid? Jamie was only there for one serial.
Right. I still want to vote Glitz as so that one of the companions doesn't have to keep. Well, yeah, so that one of them just has a fair shot, but that doesn't count. So therefore, the only fair shots are at Mel.
Mel. All right, Thomas.
This is one where I have still yet to have seen any Sixth Doctor stuff, but even just by
Shame.
reputation alone, I would probably have to go with Mel as well.
Doesn't help that Mel is she introduced in Mind Warp or Terror?
Terror.
So she only gets 2 stories with this doctor, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
doesn't help.
Matt?
Yeah, it does not help that she's a very limited time with this doctor, but it also doesn't help that, to be honest, they tried to go like really weirdly tongue-in-cheeky about things, and a lot of the jokes of her kind of fell flat. So it does not. Her character does not work that well with me for the first couple of episodes she's a part of. And also, it's
So
a
you're
really
saying-
weird knee jerk that she's suddenly companion. They never really explain it very well, at least at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, her character being the doctor's weight loss coach.
That doesn't help.
Yeah.
Non-consensual.
So I take it you're saying Mel. Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to agree, Mel. And it's for many of the reasons Matt said. One, because she just appears out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Her entire purpose is to make the doctor lose weight, which is a stupid gimmick and was completely unnecessary. And the rest of her is spent screaming at monsters.
That too. Oh my god, the ear-shattering screams that come later on in her run too.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that next
We'll get
week.
to those.
So it's pretty much unanimous, Mel. Moving on to the 7th Doctor, where your companion choices are Mel and Ace.
Oh jeez.
And
I think we're going to have to double dip here.
yeah, this is where Mel gets the short end of the stick because I don't think anybody is choosing Ace for worst companion. Feel free to chime in now if you feel that she should be, but
But I'm pretty sure everyone would vote you as arbitrarily being wrong.
All right, so you're saying Mel, Bill?
Yep.
Thomas?
Yeah, this is very one of these things is not like the other. And it's funny because, like, in what little I've seen of Mel, she's not bad, but she's also
Right.
not Ace. So
she's
Yeah.
not Turlo.
yeah, but she's also not Ace, so she kind of
Sorry,
loses
Matt.
by default. It's kind of an unfair fight.
I
but,
just
yeah.
don't get the Turlo hate. Anyways, yes, Mel, because my first memories of her with this doctor is literally her screaming her goddamn lungs up for the better part of half an hour while stuck in a globe. Holy
Yeah, and I have to agree,
smokes.
Mel, and it's A, because she screams a lot, and B, because Ace is a badass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ace
There are-
is one of those companions that'll go down on the top 10 list of companions.
She's literally right up there with Jamie.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, like, it's also a matter of there are a lot of companions that you could put up against Ace, and they would still lose anyway. So
True.
Mel
Right.
did
Ace,
not
Ace
really
is
have
that
much
rare
of a chance.
companion where it was like, no way in hell was this going to be ever a bad character. Unless you really did something wrong with an episode.
So that's the 7th Doctor. We now move on to the 8th Doctor, which by our qualification lists would not have a companion. But I am going to declare special circumstances and give you a choice of 2. You are going to have Grace or Chang Li.
So the movie companions.
Yeah, well, we can't do any of the others.
Yeah, Big Finish is too big of a wormhole to cover in one podcast.
Yes. And technically, the person from Night of the Doctor refused to be a companion.
Right.
Hmm.
I had kind of assumed we were skipping over the 8th Doctor because nobody traveled in the TARDIS with him on screen. But I guess Chang Li. although I don't really remember his character that well. So
All right. I agree with you, and I'll discuss it on my turn. Thomas, if you remember the 96 movie.
Yeah, this is honestly another gap.
If you
So
have to
I'm going to
pass,
have to pick blindly. Was
if you
Grace implied to be a romantic
One of the first to
option?
be a possible romantic
She-
companion.
on the border.
Very on the
Uh,
border, but
Yeah.
there was
There was a-
moments.
there was a big controversy, if I'm remembering things properly, because isn't she the first character the Doctor kissed on screen?
Yes.
Correct. And she obviously had a little bit of a crush, but she mostly spent the time dazed and confused with what the fuck was going on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess just going by that, to be honest, I'd probably just go Grace because that shit bugged me in Doctor Who.
All right, Matt.
Well, it's not her fault that some of the constant pining for Rose got cringy.
Yeah, there was never any applied that the Doctor had a crush on Grace. It was just a
Mhm.
Yeah.
slight crush by Grace on the Doctor. But I mean, it was slight, and it was mostly overshadowed by, oh my god, what the fuck, oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Chang Li was the oddest one for a companion. He was very much not a companion, at least when the story starts. He does turn around by the end, but it's still kind of questionable what kind of a companion he would have been if he stayed on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. Chang Li is almost an anti-companion because for 80% of the episode, he's out for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He steals the Doctor's stuff. He's at least nice enough to check the Doctor into the hospital after he gets shot, but
Because of his
that's
stupidity, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then he's basically lured in by the Master and acts like the Master's flunky for a good half of it,
Mm-hmm.
and only barely redeems himself at the end. No, he kind of sucks. Whereas Grace falls under the more traditional companion role of actually helping the Doctor.
Helping the Doctor while asking all the wide questions for us.
Mm-hmm. And with that, we will move on to the 9th Doctor, skipping the War Doctor because any companions are Big Finish ones.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, here you have, once again, only two. You have 3 choices, and I'm pretty sure I know what all the answers are going to be. You've got Rose, Adam Mitchell, and Jack.
Yeah, I hate to pick the low hanging fruit there, but
There's
one
a
of these
particular
things is
low
not like the
hanger.
other things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
after about the first episode, Rose I wasn't a huge fan of, but by the middle of the season, she had definitely had time to grow and become a decent companion.
Mm-hmm.
Adam did not take that opportunity.
Nope.
Not whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, yep, Adam, Thomas,
Yeah, Adam.
Matt.
I mean, it's kind of a no contest given that Rose is actually bearable in this series.
Mhm.
Yeah, Adam kind of falls under Chang for me, where he's suddenly out for himself a little more than he should be, and that gets him into a boatload of trouble.
Oh yeah, and I
Of
agree.
course.
Adam is the failed companion.
Yeah.
He is deliberately there to prove what it takes to fail as a companion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which almost kind of wonder if the generation of people who grew up hating Adric had the moment in Dalek where he's like, Rose is like, "Oh, so what are you, a genius?" And he's like, yeah, I am." and are just going, "Oh my god, we're stuck with this guy now." Like when he carries over the next episode, it's like, "Oh god, it's Adric again."
It's not necessarily, because we've had genius companions before. Zoe
Zoe.
was a
Well, yeah.
genius, but the Zoe's entire role was to knock the Doctor off his ego perch.
And Nissa.
Although I do think Adric and Adam were probably among the few, if fewer only, to brag about how smart they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The others would, they would ping at the Doctor, or maybe Romana won, or even okay.
Yeah,
So
you're starting to go down a well.
Romana one didn't really brag about it, but would use it to knock the Doctor off his perch the same way Zoe would, because she would compare her test scores to the Doctor's.
Romana paid attention in school. The Doctor was the smart guy who barely paid attention and got flying colors.
The Doctor was the one that didn't pay attention and barely passed his tests, but he's the one that had the street smarts to not get caught.
I've noticed that changes from story to story. Sometimes he's like the valedictorian, and sometimes he's bottom of the class.
Depends upon the people's opinions of him too.
Well,
Romana was obviously
Romana,
Romana was obviously there to tease him. Some of his classmates still kind of respected
Romana,
him.
he only got 51% of the second attempt. But yeah, having the genius companion to knock that off is something very nice. It's the Hermione role.
More or less.
But then they could have gone that way with Adam, but instead they decided to make him smart.
Oop.
What are you ooping?
That was a big loud crackle.
It sounded like you pulled your headset out while you're talking. Oh, okay.
Okay. So, and yeah, Rose is decent in the first series, and Jack is Jack.
Even in a god awful season, he's still entertaining.
And this was before Jack got really like Flanderized, and he, had a bit more to him without being dark and broody.
Okay, so we go from 9th to 10th. And our companion choices here are Rose, Mickey, Donna, Martha. I don't think there's any other choices. Jack doesn't count because he was only in there for the finale part, Utopia, and
he was there for one story at a time, but never consecutive ones.
Correct.
And same with Wilf, traveled in a story, but never consecutive ones.
Correct. I would love to have Wilf in the list, but unfortunately,
well, if we're going to include Wilf, we must also include Sarah Jane because she appears so many times.
And would have to include Jackie, and I refuse to include
Jackie.
So I think I know what some people are going to pick, but for me, I'm going to say Martha. She has some great, wonderful companion moments, but it's overshadowed by her one single-minded obsession through the vast majority of her time on the TARDIS.
All right. Thomas?
Rose. Easy. Going back, I don't think I cared as much when I was newer to Doctor Who, but the more of it I watched, the more this becomes an outlier, the more I'm like, Jesus Christ, why are they doing this? She was fine to start with, and now it's just gone downhill. And it's like, oh, why did they ever go here?
Matt?
As much as I could complain about the whole Rose thing, honestly, Mickey barely feels like a companion. He's literally only there because of Rose, and he very quickly leaves.
He's there for 3 stories, disappears, comes back for the finale.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The main reason he's there is because his girlfriend is there. Main reason he leaves is because his grandma, and the main reason he comes back for a guest appearance is to swap back to his original universe.
Yeah, I can see that, but at the same time, I have to go with Rose. And it seems to be it starts at the end of school reunion, and she just kind of turns bitchy.
Yeah.
After that, bitchy and clingy.
Clingy is the one that bothers me the most.
Yeah.
I notice the most.
Like it bugs me so much that she goes from like, I don't want, like, she basically doesn't want Mickey to go along, and then when he leaves, she's like, no, you can't leave. You're my boyfriend. It's like, bitch, you threw him aside like a year ago. What do you care?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And on a similar note, I don't care much for the cleanness of Martha either, but that seems to be a stage that we're
And
going
like,
through in
at
Doctor
least
Who at the
Martha
time.
had the good sense to get out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Martha had the good
Like,
sense to get out because she knew nothing was going to come of it.
yeah.
All right. So that's 2 votes for Rose, a vote for
I vote for Martha, and
and a vote.
vote for Mickey. Yep.
Mhm.
All right. So from 10th we go to 11th. And our choices are Amy, Rory, Clara. I believe those are the only 3 choices we got. River doesn't count because she never stays on the TARDIS.
I was about to say, but
Yeah.
then he does.
Mhm.
She never stays very long.
There's
she
a
never
lot. There's a
stays.
lot of one-offs, but I don't think any of them stay on the TARDIS.
Nope.
Yeah.
She and the only time she's there for more than 1 episode is if it's a 2-part serial.
And
So
like, the only other recurring characters are also like rarely there as well anyway. Like the Paternoster gang are like
yeah,
so
they're usually only there
infrequent.
for an
Yeah,
episode.
they're in the same
Yeah.
category as
for an
Winston
episode.
Churchill.
They're the same
Yeah.
category as Winston
I-
Churchill and Rory's dad.
I almost forgot that what the fuck was his name? But the guy, I think he's from Supernatural, but then I remembered his story was a 2-parter, so it's not 2 separate stories.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
From the series 6 opening 2-parter.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't remember where he was from. It wasn't Supernatural, but
Yeah.
yeah, he was just in that was one serial story. So
Mhm.
more or less, yeah.
anyway, those are your choices. Bill. who's the
Amy,
one-
Rory, and Clara.
Yep.
And I put Rory in the thumbnail as kind of a lazy option, but the more I think about it, I think I'm actually going to say Amy. I think she has the least interesting arc. She is she has the most moments probably that piss me off in terms of things like character regression, and yeah, I'm gonna say Amy.
Okay.
She's not
Thomas.
an awful companion, but she doesn't beat the other 2.
God.
What are you gonna say after that highly controversial decision from Bill?
It's one of those funny things where when you take Amy and Rory separately, like those 2 characters are a lot stronger together than they are separate. But even then, I think I'm probably still going to go with Clara just because I kind of agree with the opinion that I mostly seem to see about her, where she was a hell of a lot better with Capaldi than Smith.
That's a good point, and I kind of took her as a whole. I didn't stop and break down season by season.
You have to do that. You have to break.
You have to break it down.
So we're only really looking at series 7B here, but it's I'm not going to retread just for the sake of it, but going forward, yeah, it's only series 7B, Clara.
The Impossible Girl, Clara.
Well, when you say Impossible Girl, so are you counting Asylum of the Daleks and the Snowmen?
Oh, that's the weird part about Clara.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah, it is
Those
her.
Technically wasn't Clara, but it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fucked up, and thank you, Moffat, for fucking it up like that.
Can I say for my bit that I'm voting for Clara, and that's the reason why, because flippin' hell.
You just
it was like
didn't like the Impossible Girl storyline at all?
No, it did not. I was hoping for so much more, and I was highly underwhelmed and so much annoyed.
It's one of those things where she's kind of the epitome of the obsession with the companion has to be more than just a person. Like there has to be this weird mystery thing going on about
some
them.
sort of weird attachment.
Like
and
even
they made
good
it
companions,
really weird.
like even as good as a companion as Donna was, had that kind of going with the whole Dr. Donna shit at the end. So it's like this was the epitome of jumping the shark with it. And going way too far to make them like the absolute most special person ever when all they needed to be was a human being.
Okay, and I have to go with Clara as well.
Yeah.
The whole thing of having her go through the Doctor's timeline and basically be responsible for everything the Doctor ever did. Yeah, that pissed me off so hardcore.
Cringe-inducing.
I wonder at some point if maybe that was what they were going to make the 50th anniversary be. And then they were like, no, we're not going to have a 12 Doctor anniversary special.
All tied together with Clara always saving them. Fuck that bullshit, Moffat. Stop masturbating all over your companions.
Right. Another time where a side character is trying to undermine the show.
Yeah. I mean, he took River's song and turned her into this ultimate Mary Sue. And then started to do the same thing with Clara almost right away. I'm like, oh, God damn it, Moffat.
Stop it. Stop it.
Mm-hmm. So 3 of us took Clara?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So Clara takes the taco there for the worst companion of the 11th Doctor era. Only had half a season, but still, it did kind of linger.
That was a pretty rough half season.
So we move on to Capaldi, number 12. And our companion choices here are pretty slim too. Mm-hmm. We've got Clara, Nardole, and Bill.
Did Danny not travel in the TARDIS consecutively?
No. He was there for like an episode and went, fuck this shit. And then got his fool ass killed.
Oh, but you did leave one out though. Missy.
Missy's never there consecutive. Oh, I guess she is at the very end.
At least the last 2 stories, possibly 3.
Okay, I'll give it that. Missy. I was sitting here going through it, but nope. Oh, right.
But yeah, this era is also plagued by Moffat having a lot of one-offs.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to go, and it pains me to say this, because I like the personality and the idea of the character. But I think her arc is a flat line, and I hate the way it ends. So I am going to say Bill, and entirely goes on the writing.
All right, I can see that, and I will talk about that in a bit. Thomas?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of have to agree. Like it really does. It fucking sucks because it also bugs me that she was like written off at all because it's like she very easily could have been a carryover companion to
Except
13.
Chibnall didn't want any carryover.
And of
companions.
course, she carried into, I think, one of your biggest pet peeve, if I'm not mistaken, about companions.
Yeah, it's like, especially because it was the first openly queer companion, killing her off is like, what are you fucking doing?
And then killed her off, but didn't kill her.
Yeah.
The killed but not yet, not quite killed, which is so much BS.
Yeah. It is one of those things where it has nothing to do with the actress. It was just purely how they handled her. It's even like for the most part is, but yeah, she's also like she's only there for one series, so like for all the crap that happened with Clara, most of that was dropped once Capaldi came in. So
Yeah, I Clara's a lot better companion under Capaldi than she is under Smith.
Yeah.
And that's just because, he made the Doctor obsess about Clara in the 11th Doctor era, and they were just relaxed and did stuff here. It wasn't until she died that the Doctor became obsessed.
Yeah.
But, Matt, what is your choice for...
It really is down to Bill and Clara for me, and both of them have similar reasons why I don't like them. Mostly it's due to bad writing choices and how they treat the characters by the end. Because both of them suffer from the dead but not quite dead syndrome. Which is such an grievous sin from that particular time.
Dead but also immortal.
Yeah. And also didn't help that Clara was actually starting to do better, and then all of a sudden, towards the last couple of episodes, she started going kind of weird and sideways, and it's just like, oh, great, what's happening now? So yeah, trying to decide on just one of them. Honestly, I saw there was a lot more potential in Bill to keep going, and it's a damn crying shame that they let her go so soon. So I'll go with Bill was the most disappointing one.
Yeah, I have to agree that it's Bill, because it's like, let's do the exact same things we did wrong with Clara, but let's compress it all into one season.
Let's make it worse.
Was that unanimous then?
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks because that character did have so much potential as being.
But it was all squandered.
It was wasted.
And there's the question if anybody sharing her demographics was involved at any stage of the writing process. Probably not.
No.
So a lot of the potential just wasn't really in Moffat's hands.
Correct. And, nobody's going to say Nardole.
No.
Fuck no. Nardole was awesome.
Nardole was great the entire time.
Nardole didn't go through as much of an arc, but he's not that he's not that kind of character. He's a flat arc character, and that's what you expect.
He's our droid. If you're going to pick
I could make an argument for Missy being the worst companion, not the worst character, but worst companion.
Yeah, she was given the chance and completely blew it.
And at the end,
I almost picked her partially also because she was the only companion that committed genocide.
Did she commit genocide before the companion time, or
Yes.
that doesn't count
That
then?
doesn't count then. That's not while she was a companion.
hmm
Companions
But-
can have bad, shady backgrounds and be
Which is
redeemed.
part of why it's almost, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and this is my vote, this is almost why I voted for Missy, is because when the going got tough, Missy did get going. She just up and left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She almost turned back around on that, but then she never got her chance to.
Except
She wasted her
for,
chance.
no, except for at the last second. She then stabbed the master and was going to return to the doctor,
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
and then got herself shot for it.
Yep. She was having a last second change of heart and was going to go back and help, and then got shot down for it. So
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So that is the only reason why I didn't vote for her, is that she at the end did redeem herself to her failure, to her death. Which, continuity speaking, how did we get the 13th Doctor's master if that was supposed to be so she couldn't regenerate?
I mean, it's one of those scenarios where both I don't really care as much about getting an explanation, because I mean Anthony Ainley's master was killed off like a billion times.
Yes,
And
but
came
it was
back with that
never
explanation.
specifically said in there that they died. And that one, she
Mhm.
gets shot, and he says, "Don't even try regenerating."
Yeah.
The master has been wrong in the past.
yes,
True.
the master has been wrong, and the
Yeah.
master has always had plans set up to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
And also we
who's to say
don't.
Missy had another plan too.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've seen the main speculation is that the current master might not necessarily be post Missy. Like this could potentially be a master from an earlier time to
I don't
explain
even want to
why.
think about that.
You just need a stretch first before
I
you
mean,
reach
like,
that
not
hard.
not like Timeless Child far back, but like
No,
at
I don't
least,
even want to
no,
think
no, no,
about
no.
that, because it just fucks
Yeah.
around with the timeline so much.
Yeah. Again, you might want to stretch a little first before you reach that hard to find an answer. Ugh.
Because then you have Time Lords meeting each other out of sync, and that
And Time Lords have
always-
never done that,
Right.
at least so far.
Yeah, that always tends to try to fracture my brain. I know Big Finish does it, but that's because that's who they could get to voice act.
Right.
That month, yeah.
Hmm.
Right. They'll write a script, insert master here. Let's see who's free to do a long lunch that day.
Oh, look, we've got that guy that did the Master in Keeper of Track, and we'll use him. But this is a 6th Doctor piece. Well, there you go.
First time he's met this version of the Master. There. Go.
But yeah, I don't want to see it on the screen though, because it raises too many questions on how time travel works, and that
Mm.
it starts to break down temporal continuity and make my brain hurt. Anyway,
it's
speaking of the 13th
it's where we
Doctor-
start staring into the void. Anyway, 13th Doctor.
Speaking of the 13th Doctor, well, we've got 3 choices for companions now, don't we?
Oh, Lord.
Ryan,
Hazel.
Yaz, and Graham. And I already know who my choice is.
I'm almost going to repeat what I just said, because I feel like this is another character that had so much potential, but so far no one's
Nothing.
made any use of that potential. And we've spent the better part of 3 seasons of Doctor Who. Right? Has it been? Yeah, there have been 3 seasons, right? 2?
2.
2 so
Okay.
far, but
Was there a
the
Two
new
in
the
specials.
next one
I
will
don't
be a
know.
third.
So yeah, we spent the better part of 2 seasons worth of reviews saying this exact thing, but Yaz is underused, and the other two have had a solid arc and been fully fleshed out companions. So by default, that makes Yaz the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like it is very much like Bill, where it's like there's so much potential here, but nothing has really been done with her. And it's funny because like a lot of times when they actually did something with her, we were very quick to be like, "Oh, thank God!" Like this is what this character could be if they, And it's also why I'm so pissed that we're getting a new companion in the next series, because I would have absolutely loved to have just gone from a three companion TARDIS to a one. And just have
I agree with
Yaz
that.
so we can flesh out Yaz more. But no, now we've got to spend time introducing this guy.
I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that he doesn't come in until halfway through the season. Realistically, I doubt that's the case.
I
And
expect you
even
to
then,
hold
it's
your breath and turn purple, Bill.
I will not hold my breath because I do not have
Yeah.
enough confidence for that.
Yeah.
Especially with the way these seasons have been going. So everyone's been picking.
Yeah,
so
I'm with
far.
you guys. I'm on Yaz.
Yeah, I'm on the Yaz as well. She has been massively wasted potential. There's so much more they could be doing with her. And matter of fact, sometimes I feel like they kind of ignore what her character strengths should be at times.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just completely waste her in a scene. So yeah, it's the writing. It is completely the writing's fault that Yaz is not as good of a character as she possibly could be, and wouldn't make this even remotely a close question.
Mm.
Yep, so that's unanimous for Yaz, and that's our last one.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I know I've said before that as much as I love Graham, he should have left after the first series.
I was
Because
fine with Graham staying there, and as long as Ryan was there, because they still played off each other really well. But the fact of the matter is that they took up all the time away from everybody else.
Yeah,
Even the Doctor, technically, at times.
the main story arc companion wise in series 11 was Graham, and it had a nice end point, and I was like, okay, he could have left in resolution, and then he doesn't, and then we're stuck with 3 companions for 2 series, and it's like, I would have been fine with it going down to Ryan and Yaz for series 12.
All right.
So we had a lot more to talk about in this special than I was afraid we would.
Oh yeah.
I thought we would have more unanimous picks than we did.
Hmm.
We still had a few.
We still had quite a few, yeah.
I mean, and usually if there was an outlier, it was you, Bill.
Which is, I think, partially I've been trained by this podcast to go out of my way not to pick the obvious choice, but sometimes it just came down to difference of opinion. Like I knew that people would be picking Rose in the 10th Doctor era, and I've already expressed that I don't agree with that and why.
Honestly, I understand why she annoys some people, but she's not my problem with the 10th Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly my problem is with her is that the 10th Doctor is still pining for her. It's like, since when?
Right.
Why?
Yeah, it would be like the 4th Doctor spending the Sarah Jane era being like, but what about Joe?
Or no, it would be like the 4th Doctor spending the Leela or the Leela and Romana era going, what about Sarah Jane?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be more accurate.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have said 3rd Doctor, not 4th. Oh, that's right. So normally at this point I'm waiting for Randy to go through a list, but there's no such thing to go through today.
Yeah.
So I guess the best thing to say is please let us know in the comments what are your least favorite companions, and don't forget to like or dislike the video. And of course, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and or follow us on Twitch to keep getting our new streams every Wednesday night.
All right. So next week, we're going to start our closeout of the final 7th Doctor episodes we've yet to review. We're going to take a little trip to admire the architecture of the great Exoadon. It's Paradise Towers, written by Stephen Wyatt and starring Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor and Bonnie Langford as Mel. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Good night.